So when it comes to full frame cameras for vlogging and run and gun shooting, one of the best ones on the market is the Canon 6D Mark II. It's one of the only cameras with a full frame sensor that also has a flip screen to selfie. And in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down 7 of my best tips for vlogging with a DSLR, plus some of my favorite settings for this camera. Coming up. Hey, what's up? Sean here, and this is Think Media, bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. And on this channel, we do a lot of YouTube strategy videos, as well as tech tip videos just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. And hey, at any point during this video, check out show notes and links in the description below. I have some of my favorite accessories for this camera, any kind of show notes, the lenses I use, all of those details will be listed in the YouTube description. Let's jump into the video. So I'm super pumped to be partnering with Canon to bring you this tips and tricks video. I've been shooting with the Canon 6D Mark II for 4 to 5 months now, and just kind of want to break down some tips that I've learned, some of my favorite settings, but also I think that these tips will be applicable for anybody wanting to vlog with a DSLR. Now, there are a few things that I love about the Canon 6D Mark II when it comes to vlogging and run and gun quick content creation. And the first is the full frame sensor. There just really is nothing like the image quality that you get from a full frame sensor. It does better in low light. It also has really great depth of field and just a great look to it. Additionally, the vari-angle flip LCD screen is really a game changer when it comes to vlogging, right? And I believe this is the only full frame camera that has that, which really kind of puts it in a class of its own. Plus, one of my favorite things about Canon is how user-friendly all of the dials are, the menus, the touch screen. And so if you're just starting out, it makes it easy for quick content creation. But even as an advanced user, I've been actually shooting with Canon cameras since 2002. My first ever Canon camera was a Canon HV30 camcorder, throwback for sure. But all of that adds up to ultimately just getting a great image right out of the camera, whether you're a beginner or whether you've been shooting for a while. And the final thing I like about the 6D Mark II is that it's all weather sealed. And so for vlogging, especially if you want to travel, if you have it out all the time and you're taking it in and out of cars and luggage and all kinds of things, having a body that has a really good build quality like this is nice in those circumstances. Now, one of the features that would be nice to have in the 6D Mark II is 4K video. However, for run and gun shooting for vlogging, I really think you can live without it. In fact, there's a couple reasons why I think 4K is irrelevant still for most people and why I'm preferring not to shoot on the road in 4K. And that is, number one, large file sizes. It's just much larger. Recently from San Diego, I had to send some footage back to Vegas, and 4K probably would have killed the project. It just would have been too big to transfer over the hotel internet. And so 1080p not only is really still the standard as far as final projects go, but that speed of being able to have smaller file sizes is huge. The other thing is editing. You know, editing 4K is brutal, and most people's computers aren't set to handle it. And when it comes to vlogging, it's all about speed. You want to get that project edited, uploaded, and posted as quick as possible. And so for workflow speeds, I'm preferring to shoot in 1080 anyways. And then finally, most people aren't even watching 4K content, meaning they don't have a 4K TV or a 4K monitor, and most people are watching content on their mobile phones. So again, for an all-around content creation solution, I think the 1080p and the slow motion that you can do with 60 frames in this camera is more than sufficient for crushing some really killer run and gun and vlog style content. So with all of that said, let's jump into my 7 tips for vlogging with a DSLR and my favorite settings for this camera. And tip number 1 is getting the camera set up with the right settings. So let's dive into it. Okay, let's start off with my basic settings for vlogging with a DSLR. And what we're actually gonna do is select our frame rate first. So I'm gonna go to 59.94. And the reason I love 60 frames per second is if we want to slow down the footage, that's gonna give us a 50% smooth, slow motion, which is great. But if we also wanna just run the footage full speed in like a 30 frames a second project, it's still gonna look great. So I think that 60 frames a second is the most versatile setting. Our next setting is gonna be the shutter speed. And so we wanna do the rule of multiple. If we're at 60 frames a second, we want to double our shutter speed. So we're gonna go to 125 on the shutter speed. Then of course, we can zoom the aperture to the right exposure. You know, if I'm at 24 on the lens, which I have on the front here, then I'm going to be able to be at 3.5, and I might want to stop down more than that to adjust for lighting, but in low light situations or indoor, that's actually a good aperture to be at. And then of course, setting the ISO last, and because there's a lot of light in this room, 200 is as low as it goes here, so we'd actually be pulling the aperture down to get correct exposure, which we can see right there. And that's sort of the basic settings. Now, the only time I usually do not shoot in 60 frames a second is if it gets dark out and I need better performance in low light, because that 125 shutter is gonna be darker than what we would be at 60 if we switch to 30 frames. So that's kind of my indoor or, you know, low light settings. I'm gonna go to 30 frames, have the shutter on 60, which is gonna introduce a little bit better light performance if I'm in a low light situation, and especially if I don't need slow motion. Now, it's nice to have slow motion, especially if there's enough light, but again, that's sort of the choice you have to make when picking out your camera settings. And then typically, if I'm just running gun shooting, I will set it to auto white balance. And then for the picture profile, I actually like to do neutral. And the reason I love neutral is it means out of camera, the footage is a little flatter. It's just kind of, you know, not as contrasty. And then my favorite setting is to bring it straight into Premiere and drop Gorilla Grain LUTs on it. We actually have a video out, I'll link it up on the YouTube card. And I just do a basic everyday color profile with contrast, and I don't even usually change the settings. Like straight out of the camera, just dropping that LUT on there, I think looks great. Check out this example right here from a recent shoot I did in Vegas. But then if you don't want to color grade your footage in post and you just want it looking great out of the camera, I recommend maybe auto picture style or even portrait is going to give you some more vivid kind of colors with still a great look to it. And that's one of the things I love about Canon cameras is just their color science. The footage looks great right out of the camera, very usable. Whether you want to do some adjustments in post or you don't want to, you can always just get quality footage quickly with a camera like this. Now, tip number 2 is the autofocus settings. Now, of course, the dual pixel autofocus in Canon cameras is amazing, and I pretty much alternate between these two focus styles. When I'm on camera, if I'm vlogging and I want to just track my face, I put it on face tracking, or if we're shooting an interview or something like that, and again, there's faces in it and that's where we want focus, then I would select that face method. If I turn the camera around and I shoot a lot of environmental shots, or I'm shooting products or buildings or any kind of inanimate objects or not trying to track faces, I use smooth zone AF, and then I just select the area I want to be in focus, and it gives you kind of a more general inanimate objects, landscape type of a focus method. And that's it. I just switch between those two focus modes depending on the situation, and they work great. Tip number 3 is the lens choice that you pick when vlogging with a DSLR. Now, typically you want a really wide shot for vlogging, at least when you're pointing the camera on yourself. Right now, this is a Canon 80D that is filming this video with the 10-18 lens. So that's where it gives you this big wide shot, a great vlogging lens. When it comes to the Canon 6D Mark II, it's hard to find a lens that's super wide that's also great for this camera. Now, I have used the 16-35. I love this lens, but it doesn't have image stabilization built in, and image stabilization is a big deal to take out some of that lens jitter when vlogging. Consider the G7X Mark II has built-in IS, and it has a starting focal length on a 35mm equivalent kind of range of 24mm. So if you've ever vlogged with this, you're used to holding it up and what that shot looks like. You can get that on the Canon 6D Mark II with my favorite all-around lens for it, and that is the 24-105 IS STM lens. That's actually the kit lens for the Canon 6D Mark II. I think that it's a pretty incredible lens. I believe it's the only full-frame lens that Canon offers that has that STM motor, which takes full advantage of really smooth autofocus, which again, makes it silent as far as autofocusing and smooth for autofocusing. Additionally, I like this lens because it's lighter than other full frame lens options. Now, Canon is renowned for great crispy L glass whenever you see that red line, but these lenses also come with some weight to them. So as far as a great all-around lens, I definitely recommend this. And if you were vlogging with any kind of DSLR, think about your overall focal range. One reason this is great is, again, it starts at 24, so it's that same zoom range as the G7X, but it zooms in all the way to 105. So shooting here in Vegas, at events, or shooting in San Diego, is really able to do a wide shot, and you could storytell, show landscape, but you can also do tighter shots, which adds a lot of versatility and creativity. So the biggest tip I would think with a lens is thinking about having a focal range for storytelling. And at times that might mean having more than one lens. Again, on this 80D at 10 to 18, you can't ever really get that zoomed in. Like, that's gonna be it. That's as far as it goes right there. But with something like this, you can zoom in a lot more, which for photography, for shooting B-roll, is very powerful. Tip number 4 when vlogging with a DSLR or vlogging with any camera at all is image stabilization. So important. Now, we just touched on that a little bit, but again, that's why I love this lens for the 6D Mark II, because it has that built-in image stabilizer, which makes a big difference. I mean, if you look at this footage here, shooting at 105, so zoomed in a lot, with it off, you can see the lens jitter, and then when you click it on, you can see how it smooths the shot out. And so having image stabilization built into the lens is super powerful. And again, that's also more like the Canon G7X. No matter what camera you look out for vlogging, always look for IS. That has that IS, it says right there on the lens, and that's why it's gonna be smoother than cameras that don't have that. Now, additionally, some of Canon's newer cameras, including the Canon 6D Mark II, also has electronic image stabilization. Now, what that means is that it's actually not motors like the IS and the lens stabilizing the shot, but it's actually cropping in on the sensor a little bit. Like if this is the sensor that's being used on your camera, if you turn on the electronic image stabilization, it crops in a little bit because it's gonna use the sensor that's not seen ultimately to remove a little bit of shake digitally. Now, I don't use this too much, but let's actually just check out some of those settings and talk about how they could work and what the best scenarios would be. Okay, so there are a couple different levels of electronic image stabilization on some Canon cameras. So right now, this is a 24mm shot and there is no image stabilization on. But if we stop recording, we can hit the Q, we can go to our image stabilization, and we can go to enable digital IS. So did you see what happened there? It just cropped into the shots. So now this is what the shot looks like, cropped in a little bit, but the digital image stabilization is turned on. And if we turn this off and we go to the image stabilization again, we can actually go to the enhanced image stabilization, and you can see how cropped in it is now. So those are really the three settings. There's IS off, there's IS turned on, and then there's the enhanced electronic IS, which again crops in quite a bit. And so typically when I'm shooting with this lens with built-in image stabilization, I just have the electronic image stabilization turned off. Or if I know that I'm gonna be like walking down a sidewalk and vlogging and narrating something, then I might turn it on to that first level. I typically will never go to that enhanced level. It just crops in too far. But that first level is nice. And the cool thing about having that image stabilization setting is those two settings can work in tandem. The lens IS is working and the electronic image stabilization is working. And so that's definitely something to experiment with based on the settings of your camera. Tip number 5 for vlogging with a DSLR is incorporate time lapses. Now, a lot of the Canon cameras, including the Canon 6D, have a time-lapse mode built right in. And I love to use that. I can just go to the menu, turn on the time-lapse movie mode, and then once you enable it, you've got even the ability to do a 4K time-lapse, and I've shot a couple of these recently. Now, it allows you to select the interval, the number of shots, to actually make a lot of adjustments if you're fancy or if you know what you're doing, but I actually always just leave it straight out of camera, and I just try to pick out an interesting shot. And so here in Vegas recently, I shot one at a conference down at Mandalay Bay, and then also in San Diego recently, we got some pretty crispy, beautiful looking time-lapses right out of this camera. And my biggest tip for time lapses is try to think about what the motion is gonna look like. You know, if you put up a time lapse on just a blue sky with no clouds, they're there might be nothing to see as time passes. You know, maybe the light changes, but that's about it. But I found that if you look for roads where there's gonna be like cool car motion, or you look for different scenarios, you gotta just kind of experiment, but look for motion that will turn out really cool, different light changing and whatever it is, and that will really level up your videos and your vlogs by incorporating those dynamic time lapses. Okay, tip number 6 actually has to do with photos. Now, while I realize that doesn't deal directly with vlogging, I think all of us as content creators and video creators should be leveling up our photo game, especially because even just YouTube thumbnails are one of the most important things for getting your videos clicked on. So really having a solid photo game, you know, and strategy as it pertains to that. Plus, all of us are also needing to share content on Instagram, Facebook, these other social media platforms, maybe for personal branding, leveling up your website. So having a lot of good photo content is huge, no matter what you're doing for building your brand online. And so I love this camera because you've got the 45 autofocus points. I think it's 26.2 megapixels. It's a full frame camera too. So having a full frame camera produces just insane image quality. Now, as far as some of my other features that I think are essential, is definitely the built-in Wi-Fi. What I love is I can be sitting in a conference session, shoot some photography, and then just jump on my phone, use the Canon Connect app, and just pull photos off of the camera nice and easy. And then I also like the fact that you can also control the camera remotely really quick with the Canon Connect app. And so recently in San Diego, I was shooting solo. I just hooked a GorillaPod up to a light post to shoot a couple intros for some videos that we put out. And it was great to be able to use the app for shot composition, to start and stop recording, to change settings. And so that Wi-Fi in the Canon Connect app is great for even starting and stopping video as well if you're shooting by yourself and you want to have kind of a second monitor and some control. Also for pulling photos off of there, and for any kind of hands-free operation. Now, when it comes to my favorite settings for photography, I highly recommend shooting in RAW. That just means you're gonna have so much more control if you bring your photos over to a computer to control the lighting, the exposure, the white balance, to make the photos just look insane. You can adjust JPEGs a little bit, but they're pretty much set once they're set. It's hard to change them that much. Keep in mind though, that RAW file size is also much larger, but the quality is much better. And so typically I shoot in the full-size RAW, and then I also turn on either a medium or a small JPEG, so I have preview files that will load quick, or even just quick files if I want to pull those out and post those on social media with a much smaller file size. Additionally, for just shooting quick photos or selfies, I like using the timer. And one of my favorites is just the 2-second timer. And so recently at a conference called 10X here in Vegas, I did this selfie. And if you check out this photo, it's pretty cool because you can see the fact that with a zoomed out lens, the fact there's so much depth of field is pretty impressive. That's due to the full frame sensor inside of this camera. But what I did was I just had this on a GorillaPod, I figured out the shot composition, and I just hit the shutter button with the 2-second timer, extended the camera out, and then snap, was able to grab that photo. And so, you know, getting familiar with your camera settings for photography is great, especially as a solo creator. When I was traveling in San Diego, I would be doing these solo shots by setting the camera up and either using a timer or using my phone to be a little bit more creative for social media content or for creating thumbnails. But all of those examples we've been talking about are kind of just the quick content photography that you could pull out of the 6D Mark II. But let's not forget that this is a full frame camera that really can produce professional quality photos, whether that's weddings, whether that's commercial photography, portraits. And so if you check out some of these photos that I shot back in December around the holidays, they're all off of this lens, the 16-35. And so keep in mind, this full frame sensor, this camera, it can produce some stunning photography. And so one of the reasons why I love having this as just a daily walk around camera is not only can you shoot vlog footage, not only can you shoot an interview and produce great video and quick social media content, but if you also want to shoot like real pro photos, you've always got a great camera for portraits, for whatever you may need because of that full frame sensor and just the image quality performance you can get if just shooting with this kit lens, or leveling it up to L glass, which Canon is really known for, and just pristine photo quality. And then finally, let's talk about some of my favorite accessories for this setup, as well as the best audio settings. And the first one is this JOBY GorillaPod 5K. Now, you've probably seen these before. This is like, I think the biggest model they offer. Very robust, very beefy. Nice because it's pretty tall. It's great for wrapping on railings, all kinds of different situations. And also for just giving you a grippy handle for running around with a setup like this. And then for audio, I love the Rode VideoMic Pro. I actually have a full video out about that, so I'll link that up on the YouTube card in the description below. But the main thing that I like is two things. One, I love that it has the plus 20 dB on there. So my favorite settings for the Canon 60 Mark II in particular, and most Canon cameras, is never to actually use the audio settings, but to put it on manual. And what I do is I actually turn the gain on the audio recording level as low as it goes. Like I put it all the way down and I put it one click up, but it's perfectly loud enough because of the 20 decibel gain there. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking the work off the amplifier inside of the camera and allowing the kind of noise floor to be super quiet and the audio to sound really great, and putting that extra gain boosted off of the mic itself, if that made sense. And so a combination of plus 20 with just one click up on the audio there is really great. And so when you put it all together, this is one killer DSLR vlogging setup. You've got the JOBY GorillaPod, you have the flip screen so that you can see yourself when vlogging. You've got the 24-105 lens, which is a good zoomed out focal distance. And you've got the built-in image stabilization, takes out some of that jitter. Great audio coming off the Rode Pro. But again, you can also flip it, and most of the content I'm shooting is not kind of from a vlogger perspective, but I turn it around. I might use this to stabilize the camera on my body a little bit like this. I'll use the GorillaPod as a tripod to just set the camera down or wrap it on a railing somewhere to shoot time-lapse content or stable B-roll footage. And then also turning the camera towards others and shooting quick interviews or sound bites or audio clips. Once the live stream is over, you're still not done. What you're gonna wanna do is optimize the video after it's over. And then of course, flipping into photo mode, shooting photos, you can see that altogether, this setup is a very versatile kit for creating rapid content, for vlogging, and for also taking great photos and any kind of creative content for social media and projects you're working on. Question of the day: what is one of your tips when it comes to vlogging with a DSLR? And do you have any questions about this setup or ideas for future tutorial videos like this one? Let me know in the comments section below. So thanks for checking out this video. Subscribe for more videos just like this. And if you want to see other videos in our DSLR and vlogging tips series, just click or tap the screen right there. For another video from Think Media, click or tap the screen right there. Until next time, Think Media is bringing the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. Keep crushing it, and we will talk soon.